Hey there, rulers. Today we are having a little quick feature match between myself on blue Funf lock versus Tyler Tompkins playing Pricia, red-green Pricia cheat-in stuff. Let's go ahead and jump right in.
This session brought to you by Odyssey Games for pre-orders and sealed product, CCG Prime for tons of singles and supplies, Cardo Doko for international rulers looking for products, and FoulLibrary.com for articles and wonderful deck lists.
As well as our guest lecturer members King Pearlshine, Vite Ramen, Mognite, and Darren Noblock.
Class is in session.
Okay, so as always, before we get started, just a reminder that Odyssey Games does have pre-orders up for Crimson Moon Battleground. You can check that out in the description down below. Set's coming out soon. You want to definitely get those pre-orders in. It's looking pretty hype. So the blue Funf list, if you haven't seen it before, it was kind of coined by Alejandro over on FoulLibrary.com. We made our own kind of personal tweaks to it. It is designed to kind of use Unknown Mother Goose a lot more effectively than we did in the first time we used Funf, which is to kind of set up an unkillable lock where you just can't ever destroy Unknown Mother Goose, and so then I can't lose the game because there's no current alternate win cons being used in the format right now. And then Tyler's using that Pricia, red-green Pricia, to use the mode to get a resonator from the field and put it tucked to the bottom of your deck and stack and cheat in the top card of your deck using things like Arthur or stuff like that to control what your card draw is. So just kind of some fun alternative takes on some rulers we've seen in the past, and we'll kind of see what comes out of it here. Typically, Pricia has been utilized to kind of go fast, but now we're kind of using Pricia as a way to bring in some large boys very quickly. Particularly, I think he is playing the 10-drop Avenger in the list, which is a pretty fun idea to play here. But let's go ahead and see how it goes. Mulligans have been done. We're jumping in here. Tyler having a hand of Rook eggs. We jump in. Blasting waves off the top. We get a Rook egg coming in here. Honestly, kind of weirdly helpful for him because like I play stuff like Age of Death in the list, and so like that suddenly feels bad to go for an Age of Death because I don't want him just searching off of it. So we're just gonna hit a Moonshade, use Funf to put Blessing on the Moonshade for later, and then pass the turn. The other thing to note about the blue Funf is you'll see that we're using Child of the Eclipse here. We can sideboard into Child of Rain because we're playing a little bit more blue cards in the sideboard package. See another Rook egg, and then we see a flash in of a Lucifer. Lucifer, of course, being very helpful here for being able to drain some life, gain some life, and fly over these Rook eggs so we can start taking care of Tyler's life total. The other thing that's nice about this, too, is the fact that like when Pricia has flying because of her God's Art, we'll have a blocker. Although with the Child of the Eclipse, the likelihood that that God's Art's going to resolve is pretty low. We'll have to see. Going ahead and paying 2 here. We're going to go ahead and play part 1 of the luck, which is Wall of Terror, and then swing in with Lucifer, go down to 31. So the lock is kind of 3 cards, just to explain it. It's Wall of Terror, Never End, and then Unknown Mother Goose. So Never End is to try to give the whole board Eternal so that we can't die to things like stat nanks or board wipes and stuff like that. And then Wall of Terror is designed to be able to give Unknown Mother Goose Barrier, so things to stop stuff like Radius or other things that could remove the Eternal from Never End and then kill it. It's also a way to be able to protect the Never End. So if you get Wall of Terror, Never End, and Unknown Mother Goose outside of things that force you to banish resonators, there's really not much in the game that can remove that set of 3 cards from the game. And so as long as you have Blessing on your Unknown Mother Goose, you just can't lose. And so then you can just kill your opponent from there, kind of choke them out. Interesting card in the hand there of Tyler. I do see that looks like a Door of Time. Seems like that might just be a fun list from itself, especially if he is playing the Pricia spell or the like cheat in with like something like the Avenger of Amadeus and like can't give it swiftness that turn, you know, just take another turn and then swing in. So that'd be interesting. It also is just kind of a pet card of Tyler and Ren, who we've seen on the channel recently as well. So we do have a Phantasmal Ascendant. We do have a couple of Rook eggs. Looks like we see whether or not Tyler's going to try to maybe go off this turn potentially. This might be the turn to do it, considering the fact that we don't have the ability to cancel the Gods Art right now, but it doesn't look like he has much in the way of setup, although I think that proxy card in his hand is an Arthur, the 2-drop Arthur that can help stack the top cards of your deck. So, swinging in for 4 with the Phantasmal Senate, we say that's fine, we'll take the damage. I think he's not going in for Calling Stone this turn because he doesn't have access to the water yet that he would need for Arthur. That might be the reason. Do see a Hearth Core there, so we do get to start to be able to see the water to set up the Arthur, which will be helpful. And then passes the turn, and we're going to lose the stone. So that's fine, you can lose the stone. So didn't get a ton of value off of that Phantasmal Ascendant this turn, unfortunately. I think he was hoping he would hit the blue-red stone off of the Phantasmal, and then he really would be able to go in that turn pretty quickly. We're going to see a Sword of Progression here, just to draw a card and set up the future swords to be cancels. Third Blessing Stone, we're going to go ahead and put Blessing on the Stone of Death. So now we have 3 stones with Blessing. You see we do have Duet of Darkness, we have Angelic Battle Barrier. We have all kinds of good cards to be able to run here. Gonna pay 600 life and put Sealed One-Eyed Dragon's draw power on the chase. This is another cool card that's been run in blue Funf. You'll see us set up here. We say like, oh, this hand's not super great for dealing with whatever Pricia might be dealing with. So let's go ahead and just use Wall of Terror in response to Sealed One-Eyed Dragon's draw card effect to empty our whole hand and then try to use Flute to awaken the Flute and draw 4 more cards. Blue Funf does tend to, Funf does tend to run out of cards a lot since it's like 1-for-1 discard kind of stuff, so it makes sense to try to refill your hand, and Flute is a wonderful addition to that. Unfortunately, we do see the Lorite come in, so that is going to stop it, but we do get to at least draw the card off of Sealed One-Eyed Dragon, which is helpful. Did see a Fallen God, Entering Satan. I could see us tapping out to play this turn. We have 3 things with Blessing and we have coin, so we could go down to just 1 will and play the Imaginary God of the Fallen, if anything. The problem is we start to do that and I go, oh, wait a minute, you have Rook Eggs. You could just banish the Rook Egg and search and mitigate the fact that I'm just making you discard a card. So it's kind of a toss-up to whether to play that card right now. I kind of want Tyler to commit to killing his own Rook Eggs first, and then we can talk about going from there. Now, Tyler does draw for turn and then uses the discard Arthur here. One thing to note is that you can't use the discard Arthur's discard ability until you have the draw 3, until you have a J ruler. You notice there that the cards he drew was Rook Egg, Rook Egg, Isis, and Gradius. So technically the card he would see there, because he has the will to just cast the Arthur into the field, and then he'd draw 2, get to put 1 back, and so he would at least get to see the Isis and the Gradius. So just a little bit of an error in terms of execution there is that you could only use the discard ability if you have a J ruler. That being said, it's still really helpful for doing Judgment, and then response to Pricia's Enter effect, you can just pay 1 blue and discard it. Will efficiency's sake, he would also get the desired effect here by just paying 2 and casting the Arthur as opposed to paying it for just 1. The interesting thing is if he plays the Arthur, then he has a 7/7 body to be able to put on the bottom of the deck. We are going to go ahead, though, and use that Gradius that he wouldn't have technically seen, and we're going to remove the Lucifer from the game so he doesn't have a flying blocker to get into his way, to get out of his way. And then he doesn't have to discard a card because Lucifer will lose the ability to force him to discard when destroyed, and then it will go into the graveyard. So, again, a little bit of sequencing there. Just for the sake of understanding kind of how that sequencing would have worked, or should have been done. We are going to see a Judgment here, and we're going to try to cheat the Lorite to become our new resonator that we put on top. In response, we are going to do Child of Rain, or Child of Death, to bring back the sealed one-eyed and pay 6 to shoot the Lorite. Now, this is actually one of those interesting situations where if he had cast the Arthur, he could have used the Arthur as the target, and cheated it into this Garion that he's very clearly put on the top of his deck, and it would have survived the sealed one-eyed. Like, he would have successfully gotten a Garion out of that, which would have been absolutely debilitating for Blue Funf. Like, that would have just been the game. But unfortunately, because of Child of Death and because he had to focus on the Lorite, something with less than 600 defense, kind of how that sequence had gone, we were able to keep ourselves alive. And that's one of the reasons, as well as the Blue Funf player, that we were okay with pitching the sealed one-eyed to draw there, is because we knew we could kind of play around and stop the potential cheat in. Going ahead and doing our typical incarnation for Cthulhu. Search us any fire resonator we want. Yeah, you see he put the Garion on top of the deck. A good old classic Cthulhu train coming in. Swings in for 5. We'll block. Sacks the other Rook Egg to the other Cthulhu. Swings it in response to that. You know, he's going to finish his search. He's probably going to grab the Isis at this point. No, he's going to grab a sealed one-eyed. So in response to trying to kill the Wall of Terror with the second Cthulhu, we're going to discard the last card to give ourselves Barrier. That means immediately the Wall of Terror will have Barrier and +4/+4 and Bane. So it will actually live through the second Cthulhu, which is great for us. And then at that point in time, though, we're out of cards. We just have one card left in hand and no way to buy anything back. So hoping we see something good here, because otherwise we might be out of luck. Thankfully, though, we do grab an Awakening of Feathsing off the top, which is a very helpful card to be able to find those pieces that we need. We're probably going to go ahead and grab a Neverend, I imagine. Oh, Mikage Rhea. Okay, interesting. So using Mikage Rhea here to pitch Castle of Beatrice to graveyard. This is one of the other pieces of Blue Funf to kind of help it grind in the late game. Also makes it really good against Olga decks, because like they get Genesis, but you just like keep swinging the demons and buy it back. Buy back your demons over and over and over again. So we're gonna pay 2, go down to 21, and buy back a demon, and then use the other 2 here since we have 4 things with blessing, and recast the demon immediately. This will force Tyler to banish the resonator, discard a card, lose 600 life, and we'll gain 6 life. So clearing the board, we also have a flyer to be able to answer the Pricia. So now the burden is on Tyler to play a resonator and stack something on top of his deck if he wants to swing. He did see the Arthur though, so that's kind of insane. And he does have Rogue Spectator here, so in a not a bad spot to potentially cheat something in. That's pretty good. He just needs a good body to cheat it in, or to cheat into, because he can just cheat something when he swings. That being said, it comes down to what does he want to swing in here with. But like, what is, like, you burn the Arthur just so that you can, and then hopefully draw into something to be able to stack off the top. I mean, there is a world where if he hits something like, oh, unfortunately, doesn't see much, double Phantasmal Ascendant Rook Egg, doesn't see much there. If he had seen a Garion there, that would have, you know, been the same situation, right? It's just absolutely gross for a Garion to come into play. You just like turn the Rogue Spectator into a Garion. Sure, you'd lose the Pricia because the demon would just block it, but also at the same time, like, you've got a Garion at that point, you're fine, because so many of Blue Funf's cards are 1-drops, including the Contract, which is rough. So going into this, playing a Phantasmal Ascendant. Casting another Phantasmal Ascendant. Has seeded green, red stone enter the field, so he does have access to God's Art at this point, though we do have the cancel for the God's Art. Sealed One-Eye Dragon there. No real way to pay life, though. I mean, other than Sealed One-Eye's own ability, but no darkness to be able to reanimate it, which is unfortunate. Swing in. Target one of the rogue spectators to put it back at the bottom of the deck. We see, yeah, that's fine. We got no interaction for it. That's just going to get to resolve. Oh, no, it does send a Phantasmal in it instead. To cheat off the Isis. Ironically, if we could just cast the Isis and then put the Rogue Spectator back on top of the deck, and put the Phantasmal Ascendant off the top of the deck, we'd actually have way more will to be able to play around with here, because then we'd get stones, we'd produce will, we'd be able to cast the Phantasmal Ascendant, we'd get even more will. Like, we'd have a lot of resources here, and we could draw a million cards to play through this line. Unfortunately, so not using the Isis in the correct sequencing here actually does, I think, cost him, because he doesn't have a way to be able to answer the Child of the Eclipse to stop the God's Art. He can draw some more cards, but he just doesn't have will for it. And if there was a Lorite on the top of the deck or something else like that, he'd be in a much better position. Because right now we can just block the demon. We canceled the God's Art, so he doesn't get the swiftness and flying for the turn. He's gonna draw 2 cards here, and does see the Lorite there that was 2 cards down. So if he had just sequenced it a little bit differently, he'd have green will to be able to use the God's Art, or to Lorite the God's Art, and then be able to keep sequencing and drawing more cards and producing more will, and it would have been kind of gross. But unfortunately, at that point in time, he says, well, there's nothing I can do. I kind of burned out here, so we'll go ahead and concede, and we'll go into game 2. So yeah, a pretty cool sequence there, like some definite options. Unfortunately, just kind of sequenced it a little bit not smooth in game 1 for kind of doing the Pricia aggro line, and Blue Funf was just able to kind of establish enough of a wall to hold off to the point where the Pricia wasn't a really big threat. Double Sealed One-Eye, double Cthulhu, and Isis in the hand for Tyler. Probably going to mill some of that away. I imagine probably one of the Cthulhus, and both Sealed One-Eye dragons getting shipped as well. Okay. Blue Funf going to be going first. Moonshade putting Blessing on the stone, paying 2, or no, not putting Blessing on stone, because paying 2 and playing an Age of Death, and we're going to put Blessing on Age of Death. And the reason why for this is we're saying, look, we're going to assume that you have Rook Eggs, right? And we're going to say, you know what, you can have Rook Eggs, but we don't want you to sacrifice Rook Eggs for Cthulhu. So we will allow you to have these, 1-drop 0/0s, or -2 zeros, that just say pay 1 red will, draw a search for a red card. That's fine with us. So we do see Kaguya Stone of Sorrow here to be able to look at the top 2 and kind of rearrange them. This could be helpful for going in on this could be helpful for going in for a Judgment next turn if we can draw into something here. Does pay the 3. Gonna go ahead and coin out a Guardian Dragon, which is gonna have swiftness and flying thanks to the resonance. It is under a -2, so it's going up to 7 and then swings in for 5. So it takes me down to 33. Not a bad start. And also, next turn it's gonna be a 7/7, backed up to being a 7/7 if he calls Stone. So once again, is a way to be able to potentially not worry about Sealed One-Eye Dragon for being able, for the purposes of cheating stuff in. The problem here being that Age of Death is just now going to be a -4/-4, and so now with a 3rd stone, it's still only going to be a -5, a 5/5. So we're going to be really trying to keep him from accidentally cheating in a Garian or accidentally cheating in a 10,000 with Eternal and Swiftness, or Eternal and Pierce. And so we're just hoping to hold that out. We do see that Wall of Terror set up again. We do see the Heart's Core here. So now we're at a point where lots of will is very possible. You do see that Isis and a Phantasmal Ascendant in hand. There's a very real opportunity next turn for Tyler to just kind of at the end of my turn, flash in Isis, flash in Phantasmal, produce a ton of will going into his turn. And then you also see there's the Rezard there, which is pretty cute. Interesting thing to note here about the Rezard is that Phantasmal Ascendants with Rezard will infinitely cycle. So that's a little bit concerning for me if Tyler picks up on that and if I don't have some way to stop it. So we'll have to see. Swings it with Guardian Dragon for another 5. Takes me down to 21 or 26 and then passes turn. Going in here, we do have double Sword of Progression. Gonna put Blessing on the first stone. So now we have 2 things with Blessing. And we're actually gonna try to go into Contract. We're gonna try to do Summon the Dragon of Death here. We're not gonna pop anything on his side of the field. We just wanna get access to additional Blessing. And the thought being here is that we can put Blessing on itself and another stone so that Tyler needs to, you know, we're starting the lockup, right? Of like, look, Tyler might cheat in something cool, but we don't have a way to deal with it, but at least this way we don't die. You know, especially if there's a Garion that comes down, being able to kind of protect it. Although Garion has precision, so that doesn't really help us very much either. Put Blessing on a second stone as well as itself, so we've got 2 stones with Blessing. 4 things total with Blessing, so now we're at a point where we could start casting Demons for 1, although it seems doubtful. I don't think I have any in hand at this point. Oh, and we did see the Never End. So now we have all 3 cards of the block. We draw another card. So here's the interesting thing here too, is if we need to go into the lock, we absolutely can. We've got 7 cards and we can easily discard 3 of them. Down comes that Rezard, Ataraktia's leading Doctor. And this is where I talk about it could be an infinite, or not really an infinite, but like letting Tyler ramp to all 10 stones immediately, which would be gross because Rezard would then like cheat in, like Phantasmal Ascendant would come in, immediately die, trigger Rezard to come back to hand, but then trigger the Phantasmal Ascendant to then cheat a stone into play recovered so he could continue to just cycle. And you do see he has Isis in that hand too, so Isis could then, he could even call stone. Doesn't even really need to call stone at that point, to be honest. Can play the Isis, play the Phantasmal, and just loop the Phantasmals to hit all 10 of his stones and have a bunch of floating red will, so that he could also then just immediately use Pricia and flip it and all of this crazy stuff. And it would be gross. So we have to stop that from resolving with double Sword of Progress, just fully tapping ourselves out to cancel that, because we don't want to help him facilitate getting to all 10 stones on turn 4. We don't want to help him with that. We are tapped out though, so we just are sitting on the ability to cancel the God's Art if that matters. And we can discard down to be, we can just discard 3 cards to be able to give ourselves Eternal with the Never End so that we're at 10, which is something to note. Knowing that he's currently sitting on what his hand is, ultimately looking at the lock and saying, no, unfortunately with this hand, I am not going to be able to do anything about it. No, not enough spot removal to be able to deal with the Unknown Mother Goose. And so Tyler does scoop it up there. So a little bit of an anticlimactic ending, unfortunately, but you can see against some decks, the blue Funf just truly is a position where they just cannot win the game and push through. So that is the match. The blue Funf deck will be up later this week. If you're interested in the Pricia cheat-in list, let me know and we'll try to pick it up. But until next time, this is GMO73 saying class dismissed.